Thank you, Madam President. Let me say at the beginning that this report identifies a number of problems. There simply must be general agreement to ending violence, but how this is done depends on whether the migrants are settled or not. I wonder, therefore, since it asks for accommodation and access to benefits to be provided, whether it might have been more helpful if the report could have acknowledged that the difference we are making is between those migrants who have a right to stay in a country against those migrants who do not have a right to stay or are still being evaluated. The issue of non-violence applies to both, but different countries have different rules for dealing with this, and I do not wish to interfere with those. I want to highlight those things that there are in common. In any case, there should be no recourse to violence, as I have said, and the police should ensure that they enforce this rather than be the perpetrators of it. It is a sad indictment of our societies today that migrants are increasingly exposed to discrimination and racism and a whole range of violence. But this is true not just of migrants, but of existing communities such as the Jewish community. I am glad that the report recognises that the law is not the only way, or indeed the most effective way, of dealing with this issue. I would like to point to the role that faith groups can have in helping to bring people and communities together to tackle, for example, social and other problems. The need to focus on these things that unite us rather than those things that divide us is paramount. What this approach, in essence, is about is ensuring, particularly where migrants have the right to stay, that we build integrated communities and create the conditions for everyone to live and work successfully alongside each other. The report looks at how progress is or is not being made in various European countries at various stages in this, and what is needed to make it happen. This requires, for example, the identification of hate crime and the successful tackling of it. For this to happen, you need the police to improve the way they identify hate crime. For those accepted by countries, for example, granted refugee or asylum status, there is need to ensure that they are given access to the labour market and also access to necessary benefits. I think it's also necessary to strengthen those organisations which specialise in these matters, for example, NGOs, and which can assist with integration. There is a world of difference in the experience of those countries which have granted refugee status to people and those that have responsibilities like Greece to provide support for a large number of migrants. We have this week already spoken at length about the situation in Greece, and I'm not going to repeat it. But there are some factors in common here. I think the report also makes a good point in seeking to bring the media on side to ensure that false impressions are simply not created. We need, though, the cooperation of migrants in this. They have the responsibility to comply with local law and not to make the situation worse. Language is fundamental in this. For those granted asylum status, there is a need for language training which can reach the most isolated of communities and help them integrate. This will particularly help women in these communities. And assistance with some form of language training is also required amongst refugees as a whole so that misunderstandings can be avoided. And I'm very pleased that my own government has made funds available in order to carry out the necessary language training for communities in this situation. Thank you.